My name's Makai Green, and you're listening to The Simple Idea, a podcast about taking action on the things that matter to you. In each episode, you get to hear from people across the world discuss how they acted on their simple idea and tackled projects that gave them personal fulfillment. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey guys, this week we are talking about managing your creative block, and I feel like I'm a little bit qualified to talk about this topic just because if you have been a listener of the podcast as of the past 5 or 6 months, you'll know that back in September, I want to say, I took a 2 or 3 month hiatus and I didn't start uploading again until December. And there's several reasons behind that. And over the next few minutes, I kind of want to talk about how and why all that happened with me not creating for 2 or 3 months and how I managed to get myself back on track. So as I typically like to do with the show, I'm just going to hop right into the main content and discuss how I got out of my most recent creative slump. So I kind of have like a little list prepared with some of the things that I did to help me out. So the first thing on that list is I cut out things that made me feel overwhelmed, and I kind of prioritized the things that were making me feel happy. It's very simple. I know it sounds almost dumb saying it out loud, but at certain times over the past 6 or 7 months, I've stretched myself very thin with what I want to be doing and what I should be doing. Just because you end up doing something or adding something to your life doesn't necessarily make it something that you should be doing. And it could just be something that, I don't even know if I'm like explaining this correctly. I kind of sound ridiculous right now, but basically what I'm getting at is that I did things that I didn't necessarily want to be doing, but I thought that I should be doing or that I had to be doing, kind of just completely disregarding my overall happiness. So if that makes sense, I think we're back on track here. So I pretty much cut those things out that weren't making me happy and prioritized the things that were making me happy. And since I've done that, I felt a little bit better about the things that I've been creating and some of the other avenues that I'm trying to explore as a creator as well. So the second thing would be realizing that I need to fail a lot before I ever get to even a glimmer of success. Because especially with things that involve creativity, whether it's art or music or, creating videos, those are careers that they don't materialize overnight. It's usually years and years, for most people at least, years and years of continuous failure, continuous, very steady incremental growth before you see any real success. So success isn't something that's just going to come. And with this podcast, granted, I didn't really take it too seriously the first few months. And then going into the summer, started to take it a little bit more seriously. And then I dropped off just because I think I had this vision of what the show should be, and it wasn't there at that point in time. And that, with other things going on in my life, didn't really help me realize that I should still be doing this thing. I kind of just gave up on it because at the time, I had the mindset that even if I were to do this, I wouldn't see any real growth for a very long time, and I don't think that's the mindset to hold. I think that at all times, you got to have a growth mindset, and that kind of kicked back in towards the end of 2019. So since then, and granted, it's only February now, but we're I would say about two months in of being consistent with uploads and whatnot. So I kind of just got out of that, what mindset would I call it? The mindset of just not being ready to fail. So at this point in time, I've realized that I need to fail. I realize that sometimes the episodes that I record, the audio might be crappy, and it wasn't my intention, but next time I just have to make sure the audio isn't crappy. Or maybe, I'm a little too nervous with one of the guests I'm speaking to. Well, I take that experience and I learn from it. I'm not going to let that experience hold me back from what I want to be doing with the show, because every week, every day that I interact with this thing that I've created, the better I'll get at it. And over time, I will see very incremental growth. So really just remembering that this entire thing that I'm doing is a marathon. I'm not going to start a podcast, have millions and millions of listeners, and be some famous podcaster. If anything, I started this because it helped me personally. Then it eventually grew to me wanting to help other people, and that's where it's at now. This podcast early on was something that it was kind of like a wake up call for me personally. But I don't know. I just need to remember to go back to my roots somewhat, and remember that, like I said, this is a marathon, and that's how I need to treat it. And it's going to be a fun marathon. As long as I'm having fun doing what I'm doing, there's no reason to worry about growth, or there is a reason to worry about growth. But I think you guys get what I'm getting at here. So next thing that I did to get out of my slump was to just do things that make me happy in general. So this podcast does make me very happy. Producing episodes, reaching out to new guests, having conversations with these guests, making some connections, having really cool conversations, trying to figure out where I want this thing to be. A lot of cool things have come from this. So this podcast is something that makes me happy, and it's something I want to do more often. Hence why the consistency. And I said it earlier this year, I want this show to be something that I produce consistently. I want it to be something that's, I want an episode every week is what I'm getting at. Just because I haven't done that before, and I really do enjoy making these. So that's where we're at now. So it makes me happy. Next, we have photography, and this is something that I wish I got into, or that I was exposed to at a much younger age. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but over the past year, starting back at beginning of 2019, I got into photography, and it's something that's been very calming when the rest of my life is kind of like crazy and a bunch of other things are going on. But photography is something that I go back to when I need to just take a step back and just remember to enjoy life a little bit. So making sure to get into that. And this is a few years ago, but I used to be into YouTube. And now I kind of want to make another entrance into YouTube and kind of find my identity for that. Still trying to dip my toes into the water, but I think over the next few weeks, I might be uploading to my channel, and I'll keep you guys updated with that. Still approaching that with a growth mindset, of course. So we'll see where it goes. But I don't know, just editing videos, coming up with different video ideas and topics. I don't know, it's all very interesting stuff to me, so I'm going to give it a shot. It's something that does make me happy. So next thing we have is don't make pressure. Just kind of have fun and create. I think this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with feeling overwhelmed. I kind of expect a lot out of myself, so when I'm not meeting those standards that I want, it definitely does affect me mentally. And I kind of just have to remember to throw that out the window. Just keep doing, keep creating. Don't overthink. Put your stuff out there, and stuff will come from it as long as you're attempting to get better and improve. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So really just don't put pressure on myself. And this last thing that I have to say in terms of getting out of my slump, it's pretty simple too. Really, I just started eating a little bit healthier and sleeping a lot more. Kind of goes without saying, when you do both of those things, you just start to feel better altogether. Started getting into a whole like skin routine, taking care of my hair more. Like every tiny part of like my health in general has just been like increasing the more I pay attention to it. And I feel better too, and I'm able to do more. I have more energy. So sleeping more, eating healthier. The next step is to get back into the gym consistently. It's a bit hard just because it's cold in New Jersey at this time of year, unfortunately, but you know, that's no excuse. I gotta get to the gym somehow. So, yeah, but those 5 or 6 things are the things that I've done over the past 2-3 months, very, very steadily to get out of my creative slump. So, I don't know if that'll be of any use to anybody else out there who's listening, but I figured I'd share that. And right now, I've never felt better about what I'm doing, creativity-wise, especially with this podcast. I'm definitely starting to grow it a little bit more. And as a result of getting out of my slump, and I'm going to relate this back to the show, I've seen some pretty cool things happening with the show. I've found an identity for the podcast, finally settled on a logo and art style, a very concise and direct message. I finally understand what the show is, and I've never been happier about it, because now that I know what it is, I know what to do with it. I know the people that I need to touch. I know the people that I want to talk to. I have a long-term vision for this thing, and that all came from just being more focused, getting out of my slump, putting in the work to figure out what it is that I need to be doing instead of just ignoring the problem. And like I said, this whole thing is supposed to be fun, and it is. So I'm not going to put pressure on myself. But yeah, back to the results here. Finally have an identity for the podcast. For those of you who've been following it over the past month, we've kind of gone through like a whole rebrand, different logo now. Art's still the same. You guys have, if you've been listening, like I said before, you know who does the art for the podcast. Johnny Bummer's real talented illustrator. Go check him out. I'll probably link his stuff below. But yeah, just everything's kind of just falling in place, so it feels great. So back to uploading consistently. January, which was this past month, has been the most successful month in terms of downloads. Nearly got 200, and that's just from sharing the podcast with people and, you know, sharing it with the people who come on to the show. And it's definitely, it's just a result of doing the things that I need to be doing. So that feels great. So at this point in time, I'm just kind of looking to spread the message of the show a little bit more now that I have an identity. And I've mentioned this in prior episodes. I kind of want to get you guys, the listeners of the show, more involved to, you know, give a more hands-on feel, because the show is about feeling comfortable or getting out of your shell or getting started with some of the things that you want to be doing with your life instead of just sitting back and thinking about those things. Like when I first started this show, it took me a full year to actually start the show, because I had the thought originally in 2018. Didn't start it for a year just because I'm like, I can't start a podcast. And here we are in 2020 and I have a podcast and people listen to it. And that would have never happened if I didn't start it. And the fact that it took me a full year is embarrassing and it's kind of upsetting. But I'm sure there's other people out there that feel the same way. They want to be doing something. It could be you listening right now. You might want to be doing something, but for whatever reason, whether it's a doubt or somebody else telling you can't do it or you thinking you can't do it, whatever it is, you didn't start something that you want to start. So I feel like the more I get you guys engaged, the more I like talk about my experiences and have other people talk about their experiences. And even if you know people, that's going to help you the most. You know what I mean? So, yeah, just more audience engagement, getting you guys more hands-on with what I'm doing and what you guys should be doing, what I should be doing. Kind of creating a more foundational community with the show is a goal here. And this kind of is a plug for what I'm going to say next. The podcast now has a Instagram and Twitter. So you guys can stay up to date with the news for the podcast on both of those things. I'll upload when new guests come onto the show. I might link some older episodes to check out if you haven't checked any of those out. But yeah, like I said, this whole finding an identity thing has been really solid, and it's making me excited to get out there and create more episodes for you guys. But going back to the engagement thing, I kind of want to try something through Twitter, just for like Q&As. It's nothing special or like, you know, this crazy super thought that I had. Plenty of other creators do the same thing. But if you guys have questions that you want to have answered through the podcast, just hashtag the simple idea on Twitter, and I'll respond to all those questions in a separate episode. So what I'll do is I might just take like, well, depending on how many questions there are, I'll make an episode around all the questions and do a Q&A essentially. But I think it'll be a good way to, you know, kind of get some feedback from you guys, answer questions, whether it's for some of the guests or for me personally, or just about starting out in a creative field at all. What it's like to be a creative in college, what it's like to be anything really, any question that I can answer for you. I would love to help you out, as well as some of the guests. I'm sure they're equally as willing because they are also in creative fields. Also, sorry if this episode's a bit rambly. I have a lot to talk about, but yeah, just happy about finding an identity for this thing really, and just being motivated to get out there and share this with people. Later down the line, I'm thinking about making a community Discord, but we'll see how that goes based off of how social media goes and whatnot. But that's pretty much it for this week in terms of kind of what I have to share with you guys. Hopefully you guys have a better idea as to how you can manage a creative block through some of my own experiences. Even look up to other people through the internet or people that you know personally, getting some advice on how to get started or how to deal with a creative slump, because there are plenty of other people out there with really awesome advice or really awesome experiences that they can share with you. I'm just hoping that mine can kind of help you out in some way. But that's all I have for you guys this week. I'll keep you guys updated with any news related to the podcast through the podcast page. If you're listening, go give it a follow. It's at T Simple Idea. So T Simple Idea on Instagram and Twitter. The page is launched about a week ago, so they don't have too many followers, but why not be some of the earlier adopters here and go check out the pages. Also, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Green Mackay. So I've been linking that in each episode altogether. Also, for the intro music, you can find out the artist for that in the description as well. And I already mentioned Johnny, but I'll link some of his work, or his work is through the podcast, obviously, but I'll link him in the description below if you guys want to check out some of his art on Instagram. Also, my phone is on, so you guys are hearing that. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys this week, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.